Russian President Vladimir Putin refuses to restore Black Sea grain deal. EU chief warns returns of wolves to Europe, a real danger for humans. 43rd ASEAN Summit in Jakarta to be held from 5th to 7th September. Nigerian President recalls ambassadors worldwide. Australia's government to introduce legislation on Monday to tighten loopholes in workplace law. African Union inducted as permanent member of G20 on Indian proposal. Morocco's earthquake, death toll rises over 2,000. Russia holds local elections in occupied parts of Ukraine. Record-breaking rainfall paralyzes most parts of Hong Kong. Spanish president announces that he tested positive for COVID-19. Russian President Vladimir Putin has refused to restore the Black Sea grain deal. He reiterated that the landmark deal allowing Ukraine to export grain safely across the Black Sea will be restored only after West meets Moscow's demand on its agricultural exports. The remarks came after a meeting with his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan in the Black Sea city of Sochi. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan arrived in Russia in the hope of reviving the agreement seen as vital for global food supplies, especially in Africa and West Asia. Mr. Erdogan, after the talks, said that it would be soon be possible to revive the grain deal. He said that Russia's expectations were well known to all and that the shortcomings would be eliminated. He added that Turkey and the United Nations had worked on a new package of suggestions to unblock these issues. He also asked the Ukrainian side to soften its negotiation position against Russia in talks over reviving the deal and export more grain to Africa rather than Europe. European Union chief Ursula von der Leyen has warned that the return of wolves to parts of Europe has become a real danger for livestock and potentially also for humans. She has promised a review of predators' protected status. Wolves had once been hunted almost to extinction in Europe, but in 1950, countries began granting them protected status. Now populations are growing in several regions. Ursula von der Leyen urged local communities, scientists, and officials to submit data on wolf numbers and their impact to a European Commission email address by 22nd of September. Using this information, the Commission will then decide how to modify wolf protection laws to introduce, where necessary, further flexibility. Conservationists, however, have hailed the return of healthier wolf populations to Europe's mountains and forests, seeing the large predator as part of natural food chain. Under EU Habitat Directive, first adopted in 1992, the wolf enjoys protected status. The 43rd Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Jakarta will be held from 5th to 7th of this month. The meeting comes amid heightened tension in South China Sea after China released a new map laying claims over large swaths disputed by some ASEAN members, triggering protest by these states. Singapore Prime Minister will lead a delegation to the summit, where the bloc's leaders will discuss the crisis in Myanmar. Singapore Prime Minister's office said in a statement that ASEAN leaders will discuss ways to ensure the bloc's continued relevance and centrality in evolving regional architecture. The leaders will also discuss strengthening ASEAN integration and expanding collaboration in key areas such as digital and green economies. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has ordered recall of country's ambassadors in the world over with immediate effect. Presidential spokesman said the president is determined to ensure that world-class efficiency and quality will henceforth characterize foreign and domestic service delivery to citizens, residents, and protective visitors alike. In a statement, the president's office said Nigeria's United Nations permanent representatives in New York and Geneva are exempted from the total recall due to upcoming United Nations General Assembly later in this month. Nigeria has 109 diplomatic missions worldwide, comprising 76 embassies, 22 high commissions, and 11 consulates. Mr. Tinubu is scheduled to hold talks with US President Joe Biden on the sidelines of General Assembly and also meet leaders from Brazil, India, South Korea, and Germany during the G20 meeting later in this month. Australia's government will introduce legislation on Monday to tighten loopholes in workplace law, a move opposed by employer groups fearing higher cost. Workplace Minister Tony Burke said he will introduce the bill making it a criminal offense to deliberately underpay workers with a maximum penalty of 10 years in jail and a maximum fine of 5 million US dollars. Details of the legislation have not been released yet. Burke said in a speech last week that, in addition to criminalizing wage theft, the bill would make it easier for casual workers to gain permanent roles. He further said that the impact on business would be minimal and the businesses with fewer than 15 employees would be exempted from some provisions. Meanwhile, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry has said the law will restrict independent contracting and threatening the viability of online food delivery and ride-share services. September 3, 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed by John Adams, Ben Franklin, and John Jay, formally ending the American Revolutionary War between Britain and the United States. September 4, 1609, the island of Manhattan has discovered by the navigator Henry Hudson. September 7, 1822, Brazil declared its independence from Portugal after 322 years as a colony. The African Union became a permanent member of G20 on 9th September 2023. Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited the head of African Union, Azali Assoumani, to take his seat as a permanent member of G20 as the first session of G20 summit got underway in New Delhi. India had proposed that the African Union be granted permanent membership of G20 with a sense of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. In his remark at the first session titled One Earth, Mr. Modi said India's G20 presidency has become a symbol of inclusion of Sabka Saath both inside and outside the country. He added that this has become the people's G20 in India as crores of Indians are connected to this. India called upon the world together to transform the global trust deficit into one of trust and reliance. Prime Minister Modi said this is a time for everyone to move together. He said whether it is the management of food and fuel, terrorism, cybersecurity, health, energy, or water security, a solid solution has to be found for our future generations. In Morocco, the death toll from a 6.8 magnitude earthquake has risen over 2,000, while about 1,400 are said to be injured. As per the reports, the rescue teams are yet to reach out to more victims who are said to be stuck in remote areas hard hit by the quake, and the toll is likely to go up. The devastating quake on Friday night was epicentered at a sparsely populated area of high Atlas Mountains and around 71 kilometers southwest of Marrakesh. The 6.8 magnitude quake is the biggest to jolt the North African country in the past 120 years. The majority of quake victims are said to have been in remote areas. Several people are still suspected to be trapped under the rubble and debris of fallen structures that were age old and could not withstand the earthquake. Global leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, US President Joe Biden, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and others have expressed their condolences to the next of kin of those who lost their lives in the devastating quake. Russia is holding local elections in occupied parts of Ukraine that Moscow annexed a year ago. Russia holds partial control. Voting for the Russian controlled legislatures will be held in Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions of Ukraine. Those legislatures will then appoint local Kremlin loyal governors. According to the sources, the voting has already begun in most of the regions and will conclude on Sunday. It has been denounced by Kiev and the West. They have called the elections fake and a sham. The record breaking rainfall has paralyzed most parts of Hong Kong, with the flash floods submerging metro stations and shopping malls, trapping drivers on roads. Authorities have suspended schools and asked workers to stay at home in a city of over 7.5 million population. Chinese Special Administrative Region saw the highest hourly rainfall since records began 140 years ago. Cascades of water tumbled down the city's mountainous terrain as authorities issued landslide risk warnings. City's Cross Harbour Tunnel, one of the main arteries connecting Hong Kong Island to Kowloon, was also inundated with water. City leader John Lee said he was very concerned about the severe flooding in most parts of the territory and had instructed all departments to respond with all out efforts. Spain's President Pedro Sanchez has announced that he tested positive for COVID 19 on Thursday and will not be able to attend G20 summit in New Delhi. President Sanchez said that he was feeling fine, adding that Spain would be represented at G20 summit by First Vice President Nadia Calvino Santamaria and Foreign Minister Jose Manuel. Edgar Rice Burroughs was an American writer best known for his prolific output in the adventure, science fiction, and fantasy genres. Best known for creating the characters Tarzan and John Carter, he also wrote the Pellucidus series, Amter series, and Caspak trilogy. Tarzan was immediately popular, and Burrow capitalized on it every possible way, including a syndicated Tarzan comic strip, movies, and merchandise. Tarzan remains one of the most successful fictional characters to this day and is a cultural icon. Burroughs' California Range is now the center of the Tarzana neighborhood in Los Angeles, named after the character.